In tracing the origins of modern fingerprinting, we have to go back to a time and place that might at first seem unlikely: 19th century British colonial India. British involvement in India began in the 1600s with the activities of the British East India Company, a private corporation that was dedicated to expanding the country's trading privileges, and especially profits, in Asia. Over time, this company gained control of territories within India through aggressive military expansion, as well as other actions that were meant to influence and gain the support of the political elites who controlled different regions of the country. As you can see on these two maps, British involvement in India drastically expanded from what was initially a limited foothold in the eastern part of the country in the 1700s to what amounted to all of present-day India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh just a little more than 100 years later. Once the British government took over the administration of these areas from the British East India Company in 1858, local officials who were part of the colonial government faced the challenge of overseeing a large, complex society, often with limited knowledge of the people, places, and local cultures that they governed. In this context, fingerprinting emerged as one of the tools used by British officials to strengthen their control over the local population. The earliest such use of fingerprinting in India is traced back to an official named William Herschel. In the late 1850s, Herschel began to require that local people provide their handprints and fingerprints on contracts and other documents as a kind of signature that could not be falsified or refuted later on. This is an image of the inked handprint that appeared on the first of these contracts. The contract was signed by a local person named Rajadar Konai, who agreed to provide Herschel's government with a supply of materials for building a new road. Generally, colonial officials like Herschel did not have a lot of trust in the local people over whom they governed. This was the result of their own assumptions and stereotypes, which appear blatantly racist today, about the untrustworthiness of their colonial subjects in India. Requiring Konai and others to give their hand and fingerprints in this way was a way of guaranteeing the authenticity of the documents, and making it impossible for those who signed them to go back on the contract in the future. As Herschel took on other positions during his career as an official in India, he pushed for the use of fingerprinting in other areas of local government as well. Soon fingerprints were being taken from those who were imprisoned, or who had to register with the government for other reasons. In each of these areas there was a possibility that people could try to hide their identities or impersonate others, and fingerprints provided a way of ensuring that a given individual was not misrepresenting their identity. Now, in one sense, Herschel's use of hand and fingerprints was not as new as it might seem. This way of using inked impressions as a signature had much in common with older practices that had been used for centuries in India itself, as well as in China, where hand and finger impressions had long appeared on contracts and other kinds of documents, as you can see here. The image on the left shows the older Indian practice of inking the tip of the finger and using it as a signature. On the right is a Chinese banknote with a fingerprint that is given as a guarantee of the authenticity of the document. Herschel's use of fingerprints went beyond these older practices in some important ways. For example, the inked finger impressions shown here were given by regular people on a voluntary basis. We can say that these practices were a social custom or a cultural norm in these societies, much like signing our names with a pen is a conventional practice today. What was new about Herschel's use of fingerprints was that it was being used as a tool for government authorities to confirm or verify the identities of members of society, From this point onwards, as we will see, fingerprinting would commonly be applied in a top-down fashion, on a compulsory basis, and in support of the needs of government administration and bureaucracy. This new way of using fingerprints, which would soon become common throughout the world, made it very difficult for people to lie about their identities when dealing with the state. In this way, fingerprinting expanded the power of the state in its interactions with society.